Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. It's Manny, of course. I'm here with Warren and crew for Produce Like a Pro, and we're going to be finishing up our tracking session of Hunt Sales. It was one song, one day completed tracking and mixing technically. I sat with Hunt a good part of the evening to kind of get this set up. I do want to say about this session, it's an interesting thing because when I grew up, at least some of my friends, and I'm a little bit older than most, but I grew up in the 80s. And when Tin Machine came out, we were all blown away on like, who's that drummer? He looked like some Latino gangster guy with like, he looked like he was a total thug, but he was playing drums with David Bowie. So when I luckily have become, friends with Hunt over the last 5 or 6 years, when this opportunity came up for him to do a song, I was really super pumped because not only to have a guy that played with Iggy Pop, Lust for Life, I think is one of the greatest drum intros in the world that like maybe doesn't get enough credit. People think of, John Bonham, Levee Breaks, but whenever Lust for Life comes on, everybody starts dancing, and that's Hunt Sales. And then in Tin Machine, The Passenger, I mean, you can go through all the songs that he had an impact on. And then there's a lot of stuff. He played with Bootsy Collins and even currently he's still playing and he's still an active musician playing around town, making records. And I'll tell you about this mixing session. It's really fun now to put it all together and let you hear it. Recording it was one of those things where it was epic and insane. It was like recording a motorcycle gang in one dude. It was that guy has energy for days. It was a challenge to keep up with him, to move at this flow, to get all this. And now Hunt played everything. He played the drums, bass, the guitar, and vocals. And he wrote this song the day before he was to come in. He had an idea, he played it on acoustic. I tuned down to A sharp in my own band, the Chavez Ravine. Hello. And Hunt really loved the way my guitars sound. So we transposed the song down to A, but when he struck the guitar, obviously that guy has like titanium arms and legs, and he just bent the strings out. So we tuned it up, and I had actually told him that he should try maybe tuning to what Black Sabbath tunes to, and I think it was like C sharp. So we tuned my guitar up to C, so it's still super heavy and low, and he loved it. And that was the starting point of this song you're about to hear. The last thing that I'll say about the tracking of it, I've never worked with Hunt. I don't know. And obviously, you could talk once again about his history of who he is and what he's done and who he's played with. But being an engineer and putting on the engineer hat and working with someone that has this idea and this ferocity of like, we're going to do it and this is how it's going to be done, was definitely one of the hardest sessions I've done in a long time because I had to get up and match up his energy, and his energy was like capturing lightning in a bottle. I mean, if someone said, "Can you capture that lightning bolt?" Don't do it. And I went for it, and we got it. And so, at the end of the day, I am super happy with what you're about to hear. One more thing I'll say about what this song sounds like and what you are about to hear is when we were transposing the guitar and we tuned him to C, and it was really heavy. I didn't know what we were gonna do in the song yet, but he kept on talking about, "I want it to be orchestrated. I have this 2 parts in the song or 3, and I want this orchestration," and it was, his reference was White Room by Cream. Now, if you're familiar with that song, there's like, dun, there's really like epic tom section, and there's like these guitars and overdubs and stuff, and when I saw Hunt play, I didn't really understand how he was going to orchestrate this thing. But one thing you should always, my tip would be for any engineer, for any producer, is to remember sometimes the artist, not sometimes, most of the time, the artist is always right and correct. And if I would have, when he played his first part, when I'll show you a little bit the orchestration I'm talking about, as we started to make it, when he made the first one, I think even he admitted, I think this is wrong. And I thought kind of the same thing too, but I remembered I was working with Kim Deal from the Pixies. She had a band called The Breeders. I was in this exact moment where I had told Kim, I think that note's wrong. And she continued to make these parts, and then it was right. And then I felt silly because my first response was not right, and she was correct. And that was the coolest thing I've ever done. So when I saw Hunt doing almost the same thing as Kim, I remembered not to say anything as an engineer and let him follow through. And I think he would be the one to say, hey, I think there's something weird. And then maybe you could, like a detective, follow back to where I thought it went off the tracks. So it was a lot of lessons in this session with Hunt and a lot of remembering of how it is to work with an artist that has a specific idea and a sound. And then as an engineer, you have to make them happy. So he has this white room thing. He's got this orchestrated part that I don't know what he's going to do. My only 2 cents to put into this song, which you'll hear it, it doesn't sound retro, but it sounds like not even post-punk. It sounds like a guy that didn't know punk rock, but his attitude was way beyond the scope of any kind of genre or style. So he was just very aggressive and really bold with his songwriting. And there's some stuff like Talking Heads, and you can go back to Cream, even to modern Queens of the Stone Age, of what they tap into to give them this really cool original sound. So I think Hunt, definitely when he plays everything, he has an original sound. His guitars that we're going to be doing on this, I'll explain a little bit more as we go through the parts. But let's just start with Hunt's drums. This is not a Guitar Center kit. It's kind of a collage of different stuff. That's the 50s kick drum. Came from Jose at Revival Drum Shop in Portland, Oregon. The toms are from one of the first series of DW kits made in the late 90s or middle 90s. A little bit different than anything you'd buy now, but really great. Hunt hopped on the kit. He tuned it. I think we discussed he changed some stuff on the kick drum. He just did something on this side of the drums while he was playing. Oh, he added a square piece of drum to make the beater. I think he was worried about it maybe going through.
You have a drum head, spare head that's fucked up, used. I don't need a new one. And who's got a knife on him?
Kind of dead in the head, and it sounded really good. If you can tell, Hunt turns his snare in an angle. So we got a 57 on that. Underneath the snare is a P48, which is one of the early versions of a 414. It's got a Heisemann brass capsule in it. The kick drum over the beater I have hanging is a Shure SM98. All this is getting is really the beater hitting the front of the head. The toms are ATH 30s. They're discontinued tom mics, but if you can find them, buy them. They're wonderful. Hi-hat is a AKG vintage, like 60s or 70s, called a D224E. I have the same thing, spot mic for the ride. I use these mics only for spot mics. So if someone's playing and I just want to add a little bit more detail, I'll bring those in. But the meat and potatoes of the drums are going to be this C12 brass capsule tube, a condenser microphone. And then I have another C12 over here. I'm doing the Bonzo technique. So basically when I listen back, this is being panned all the way over to the right. This one's panned over all the way to the left. 421, world-class microphone. Every studio has one. Not that expensive, totally affordable. We have one of my favorite kick drum mics, which is a Bach 195. It's also a Sound Deluxe 195. Same badge, same name, same mic. Anything maybe early 2000s, probably a great Bach or Sound Deluxe 195. It's a FET. It has three switches on it. I have it switched to fat and cut, so it's boosting and cutting at the same time. And I have a dB pad on it because he's a beast and it'll probably blow out my mic. As we move out to the middle, I've decided, I wasn't sure where I was going to use. This is a brand new mic by Mojave. It's called an MA 37 tube mic. It's got a Omni switch here with the screwdriver you can adjust. That's on the back of the capsule. So it's a manual adjustment of the pattern. It goes from Omni to cardioid. This is on cardioid. The power supply does have adjustments for any kind of cutting of the low end. I have it on just flat, which is M. Also on the floor, I almost stepped on my favorite mics. These are Altec M11s, which are the power supplies. And the mics are called 21, the capsules are 21Ds, which are Omnis. So I have those on the floor, getting a little bit of reflection because my room is really dead. This power supply is for the Mojave. These are the M11s. These two power supplies are for the C12s. And I don't have any more mics in the room except that. I think with Hunt, really, he's such a bitch and drummer. We could probably even get away with just using everything here. The other mics are just to add a little bit of forgiveness in room. And I'm not sure as he layers stuff, if we bring in these mics, will it embellish the drums, make them sound cooler, or will it be better to make them smaller? So I'm leaving that up to the mixing. But technically, we were trying to really pay attention and do really good capturing of his drums. And that, and then one last thing, Istanbul cymbals. They were nice enough to let us use these for the sessions. These are made in Turkey, and they're made the old way, which were pound into whatever cymbals they're made of. Luckily for me, when I hit record, that was the only time he played drums. So we waited like a day, set up, he's coming in, I got the song I'm gonna play. He hopped on the drum set, threw down like a rough guitar to a click, and just slammed out these drums like boom, one take. And I made that mistake of saying, I'm not sure. And he's like, what? He came in here, sat here, and he's like, that's the take. And right there was my first lesson of just shut up, let this guy do what he's gonna do because he's gonna smoke you. All right, so here's Hunt's drums. I will say it's crazy the way you had him set up. An SM98 lavalier that hangs over the beater side. And when we went to mix this, he says, hey man, can you put a reverb on the kick drum? And it was used in a way that I've done that before, but his way of using it was really interesting. So I have two kick drums. One is the actual real kick sound. Two, which would have been the Bach 195, I have it running into a reverb. And then he wanted me to crank the reverb. So I have this reverb, boom, and then I have this dry kick. And that's his mix of his drums. And that was really cool. It was something that I've done before, but not so aggressively, even though I do crazy bands. But that style that he wanted to make his kit sound like was just great to see a guy that's been playing drums for years and put it together. So here's the drums, a basic kick. So this is a kick, the snare, overheads, and the rooms. And I'll add in the rest of the stuff in a second. But here we go. And then also the start of the song, he wanted a snare to only have reverb on the first hit. So I copy and pasted the snare, da-da-da-da, put it on another track, crank the reverb on it, and that's what he wanted for the intro of the song. And I thought it was the coolest idea. So here's the drums starting off the song. So when I'm mixing that, when you get these files and look at them, it's really, you're going to see a lot of kick drums. It's because he had a very specific idea of how he wanted his drums to sound, and then I had to figure out a way to do that. So this is the kick drum with the reverb on it by itself. I'm gonna add the other kick drum. So now you have two dry kick drums, one reverb kick drum, and then I have like a boom kick drum. So it was just all these things were put together so he would be happy. So it's gonna look different and weird, and I know I always tell you I record and mix very strange. Well, I met my match with this guy because he just gave it to me. Once you put the kit together, it sounds, I mean, like I said, I only got one take, so I had to get it right. Here is his kit kind of broken down to where it doesn't have the reverb kick drum on it, but you can hear the essence of his drums. Now, I know you're probably going like, wow, it sounds like a crazy drum set. Well, it is a crazy drum set. And that's part of the beauty of what we do, or what I did with Hunt. Absolutely no sampling. Nothing is going to go on the processing of having the drum set sound violent the way he wants it to be. So I'm going to add in the boom kick, and now you'll hear a really big difference in how the drum set kind of comes alive. And that whole thing about the snare in the beginning, just remember, he really wanted that snare to go and have a reverb that decays into the beginning of the drum. So that's that whole snare thing you'll hear. But when I put the whole track in, it's kind of a cool little production thing. So here it is, the essence of the drum set: no toms, no hi-hats, no ride. Now I'm gonna add in everything now. And you can tell when I had the kit raw without the reverb kick, it's cool, it's percussive, it's very raw. There's no EQ, it was just a raw recording of his drums. But once you add that reverb kick that he was really wanted in it, it's kind of crazy on how cool it comes out. All right, so his drum set was mic'd up, semi-traditional, but the things on the drums were, like I mentioned, it was a Bach 195 on the kick drum, which is the reverb one. It may be a 421 that was a Sennheiser 421, which is kind of his dominating impact of the kick on the front. The snare was a 57. The bottom of the snare was a 414 with a brass capsule, a Heisemann brass capsule, which I love on the bottom of the snare. Toms were Audio-Technica's 2030s, a discontinued microphone, but it's one of my favorites. The hi-hats were 1960s AKG D224Es, which have two elements in it, a low end and a high end, and it's the same elements that are in Bonzo's kick drum, but they made them in these mics. I love those for hi-hats and spot mic in the ride, which I did. The overhead was a C12A, 60s AKG tube condenser. They're the ones that look like small 414s, not the large C12s, and I love those. So that was a Bonzo style, one on the overhead, and then one shooting across the drums. Actually, before I get to bass, let me just play you what the C12 sounded like on their own with the kick drum. And add some snare. Now, one thing about people that record and mix, because I got to engineer it, I know what he sounded like, so I don't have any expectations of, oh my God, I got to get these drums and make them sound like this thing. I had no expectations, zero. So when Hunt played, I wanted it to sound like Hunt played, how he liked the way his drums would sound. So that's why we did some of that weird kick drum thing. But I'm really happy. My C12s, just with the drums alone, already sound like a drum set. So anything else I added was a bonus. So this is Hunt, one man show. He just did the drums. I have no idea what he's going to be doing next. He did the bass. As weird as this sounds, he played the bass with the bass sitting on the ground, and he was sitting in a chair. And he kind of had the bass out in front of him, and he just kind of played it over his drum track he just did. If I didn't know Hunt and it wasn't Hunt, I probably would have told that guy, listen, can you do me a favor, man? Can you actually play it right? But just shut up, let him do it the way he wants to do it. So we cut this bass with only a DI. And then this is the raw bass by itself. Now, some of you may hear that and go, that is just terrible. But he wanted it just like that. And I knew that when we put it all together, it was going to be just part of the flavor of the track. So that's his distorted bass. And then after we did that bass, he's like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you put a chorus on that bass or a flanger? Now, I don't know what the song's going to sound like. So I grabbed this flanger that I've used before, but I didn't expect it to have such a crazy cool impact with the DI bass. And what we did is, I'll let you hear it. I mean, that sounds really cool. So now I add the DI bass in. Remember, he's playing it on the ground, sitting down with the bass about a foot in front of him. Now, it's undeniable, once he plays bass over his drums, it's so mean. Well, for me, and like I said, this is all just a grain of salt for you. This may not be your style. So he had the flavor of being like Cream White Room. As we started to track, I got the feeling of wanting to do something like Shocking Blue. And I love the Shocking Blue records, and people don't really talk about them, but I mean, everybody knows Venus. But some of their other recordings sound like if Rage Against the Machine was in the 60s. Incredible drums, and it was just bold and forward. So halfway through this recording and mixing, I started to think about things with reverbs, and he's thinking Cream, I'm thinking Shocking Blue. We're both two madmen in a, brewing up something that's going to be crazy. That bass sounds super crazy cool. So after we did the bass, he told me, do I have a keyboard? There's a studio in this building. Luigi let us borrow his keyboard. That's what it was. So Luigi, thank you. And we brought in his piano keyboard, and then Hunt wanted to put down a sound that is only coming in on the heavy sections. And this is the sound that he chose to put on it. So we did some automation because he didn't want the synths to be playing on other sections, but we wanted it in. If you're just tuning in and you start to listen to this and I'm putting it together, you're going to be like, distortions, what the heck is that? Everything's overloaded. Sorry, that's just what's going on. So now we have the synth bass, we have the cool chorus bass, we have a DI bass, and then we got these badass heavy drums. You know, when I hear this, it just, for me, man, I'll give you my opinion. I love it. That guy is so crazy. So now he grabs my guitar. We've got the synth, got the bass that he played on the ground. He was like, could give one really what he was. He just like, he's doing his own groove, and it was perfect. So now we moved into the guitars, and this is what was the crazy part. The first guitars we did were in an amp. I had done an amp setup outside. And after we cut those guitars, he wanted to move at a pace with that orchestrated section that I had mentioned earlier that we'll get to. So let me play you first his main guitars that were through an amp. They're still raw dog, and it has it has a little bit of a room mic on it. So I'm gonna play you that with the drums and the bass and the keyboards. So as you're building this mayhem, and like I said, I tracked it, so I got to witness this. Yeah, it was like watching a car accident in slow motion, but somehow it was going to turn out all right. It was like Evil Knievel. It's just, you know, he's going to munch it, but come on, Evil, you got to make it. Don't break all your bones. So that was this kind of mix and session. So after Hunt did these guitars, there was a room mic. So let me just show you the solo of the guitars. So that's a room mic with a guitar with it was a Sears Twin 12 amp.
You got.
Now these guitars were the same miking of it. I had two mics. I wanted to get a crazier sound, so I just got one of the mics and I delayed it a little bit. I'm gonna say the one of the main mics was probably a Beyer 201, and the other one was probably an Alltech. And I put some cool things on the guitars. I have a delay. One of my favorite EQs is the Eddie Kramer EQ that is just so bumping. You just put it on, it just does something really great to guitars. A Bluey, and I have a little bit of a de-esser on the guitars. What am I cutting? It looks like about 7K. I'm just bumping it down a little bit. So this is a guitar with nothing on it. Adding some delay. Kramer EQ. Bluey kind of containing it. As you can see, I'm still slamming it. I know illegally too crazy, it's all in the red, but get used to it. It's gonna be like this the rest of the show. So all the guitars were kind of treated that way because after he cut these guitars on an amp and I had microphones, he moved into the orchestrated section. So the next thing he wanted to do was to do a guitar that phantoms the ones we just did on the amp. And this is the DI guitar straight from my pedal board, which had a Rat, an old 80s Rat, a Ibanez DDL delay, an Echoplex. It was an EP3. I think it was a full tone drive. It's this orange one. I always forget the name of it. So he was running into that, and then because he wanted to move out this, come on, let's get it going. I just plugged him into a DI, put him into my Neve 1272, and we went. And every overdub was just boom, tick, tick, TT cable into another channel until we built this guitar part. So here is the DI guitar that is not an amp, and this is the beginning of what would be the storm or the orchestrated part. Now bring in the other guitars that we recorded. This is the amp in the room and the room mic. Okay, so now we're cooking. You know, got the barbecue on. You know, we're ready to throw on some choice barbecue ribs. And once again, I still don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the lyrics. I don't know what he's going to sing, except we are just moving in this pace of building blocks. That I love this actually because there was no question about what he was going to do. It was just about when he was going to do it. So I didn't really even have to interject anything of like, well, so what's up next? I was just like, he just gave it to me full assault of recording. It was insane. Hunt, I love you. Just know I'm not talking shit. It was insane. So now we got these guitars that are one DI, guitars in the room, crazy bass with some chorus on it, crazy drums. Can you put some reverb on the snare and also make one kick drum a reverb thing? And so this is crazy, you know. This is getting interesting. Now we're going to hear the orchestrated section, and you'll hear, if you get these tracks and you're listening to them, you're going to hear some notes and chords that are kind of wrong and strange. And, you know, why didn't we fix that? Because there was no fixing. It was one shot. He played everything one time, and that's it. So nowadays, when people are really precious and they're correcting things, and oh my God, that guitar is not going to work because you hit the wrong note, that doesn't apply to this session, to that man, to this style of music. So there is some freedom in this that maybe you'll appreciate, that if you are an artist and you're thinking about making some music, sometimes it's nice to let your hair down and just be like, it is going to be what it is. This song is 100% that. And I got to say, I am so thrilled with this. It may be one of my most craziest songs I've tracked for anyone. And I love the way Hunt was right and the way it worked out. All right, so here's the orchestrated pieces. This happens 3 times in the song. So the song starts off, Hunt tells me I want to do this orchestrated thing. I just watched him play bass with it on the ground. I just watched him play guitar and he did some wild notes. And now he's going to build an orchestrated part. And as he starts to play it, that was that thing that I told you about, that I was just, don't say anything, let him do it. So here is the first one that he did. And I'll start to add him in as we go. Okay, that's where you're supposed to jump in and go, hey, dude, can you play that again? But guess what? You don't tell Hunt to play it again. He just plays another part, put it on another track. Or as he says, put on another track. All right, so I open up the second track. Here's two guitars. Do not say nothing. Let it happen. So now here's three. Wow, it's starting to come together. And that it was interesting as he built it, even though I will say maybe he doesn't know what he's doing, but there is something that he knows when something sounds good. So when he did that third one and he got that really high note in there, that was something that he always told me, make sure that one's loud, make sure that one's loud. So now, as you can tell, those first two guitars, which are, what's going on? He does this third one. So now here's the fourth guitar completing the orchestrated section. All right, now we got four guitar parts, and I'm just sweating bullets. I'm like, next one, next one, next one. And he's just, nothing is being done twice. And that's starting for me to sound really fucking cool. So then there's still two more. So then he says, open up another track, Manny. Here we go. Here is 5. All right, ditto all the above. Now here is 6. So, in the context of the song, I would say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm going to say that it sounds awesome in the song. Hearing it on its own with some of those questionable notes, if you were to correct any of those, you would kill the mojo of what he just did. So that's the important thing about recording, I feel, is to really capture what the artist makes him happy. And a lot of times, or I'll say 100% of the time, it's going to be bumping. So here's the drums and then the bass with the anarchy of those guitars. Now that section is crazy. Because he did things only once, and some of it, like I said, he was writing it from just coming out of his head the night before. And Hun is a producer. He's done his own recording, so there's no fooling, there's no smoking mirrors. He's going to have a good idea of what he wants to do. He told me, I like that one. I want you to put that one in all the other sections. So I don't know what the song is yet because he just tracked the drums. I figured it out. I cut and pasted those anarchy sections throughout the song, but I didn't correct any of the parts within it. So that means if there's a few dropouts and some things happening, but that's somehow when he played, he knew how to overcompensate for a moment that maybe it didn't sound right. And as he overcompensated, it was perfect with it. When I did the noise guitars, or that orchestrated section, I did it in 3 parts. So I keep on playing them all together, but let me just play you the 3 sections the way I did it. Here is one section, and this is of 6 guitar parts. This is 2, so there's 3 sets of 2s. Those 2 right there, one of them, he played a slide, and it wasn't a slide. I think it was, I don't remember. He grabbed something in the studio that was symbolically like a slide he can put on his finger or hold with his hand, and he did just the notes with the slide. So if you're a guitar player and you're thinking about doing a cool overdub on a song, you do your melody, playing it with your fingers, and then overdub a slide over the top and pan those, and it's pretty crazy on how cool it came out. So lesson learned, take a note. I love that. Now here's the second set. All right. So I don't need to play the first one because that was the one I started out with. So that gives you an idea of the quote orchestrated section. So after we did those guitars, he wanted to do a guitar solo. Now, once again, I don't know where the solo was going to happen because he hadn't sang on it. So we found it. This is where he's going to do the guitar solo. This one was put together out of 3 runs. This is the only time that he did something a few times. And then he trusted me enough to put together a solo that I thought was really cool. And I tried to only embrace, instead of making the perfect solo, I wanted the energy that he did. So it was kind of nice that he did it 3 times. It's kind of like that whole thing when Kurt Cobain did the Nirvana record and Butch Vig was able to get him to sing it 3 or 4 times and you got a double, which is crazy because he didn't want to do a double. Same situation here. I just said, play it again, and he played it 3 times, and thank God, and I was able to put a solo together. And he was really cool and he liked it. So here's the solo, which is a comp of maybe 3 takes. So in the context of the song, now when I hear that, I hear so much mojo. It is crazy. And this isn't a pat on my back. This means that when he wrote this song, all the reverbs and all the things that I thought would be cool, because of his song, the tempo and how he played it, it just sounded so cool. There's only a few times that I've heard a song that sounds like it's coming from another era, but it hasn't been made retro. There's no bell bottoms on this song. There's no wah-wah. There's no tambourine. It is just very caveman, Neanderthal rock and roll, and I love that. So Hunt, you're doing it, and he's building it, and I'm going crazy tracking this, but I know at the end of the day, it's going to be badass. So we just did the solo. He's stoked on that. There isn't any other additional pieces of like any kind of instrument, so now he's going to sing. So he wanted to do a main vocal, and I want to say it was done in 1 take as well, where the MA37, and I ran it into my BG1, which is made by Highland Dynamics. What's up, Bryce? I see you. And so here's his vocals with the music.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That's for sure, for sure, for sure. You know what I am, girl. So give me more, give me more, give me more. It's like a shot in the morning time. I'm want it more. So give me more, give me more.
Now, to me, and maybe to some people, you'd go like, "Wow, that is just a crazy singer." But if you can really look at what he just did, he really does talk like, "Hey, Manny." It's like he smokes, and his voice is like a gravel pit. And when he started singing, a lot of guys that sing like that, their range is really small. As you can see from the first verse to the pre-chorus, you think he's may have topped off. Then he just jumps into this other realm. It was crazy. And one thing I noticed too is I'm a Van Halen fan, and I really love David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen. But the early Van Halen records, and I think it may be something with your vocal cords splitting, or you basically have damaged vocal cords. You can get a lower octave out of your voice. In the second verse I'm going to play, I felt like his voice had that. So while he's screaming, and he starts to move up in his voice in an octave, there always remains a kind of a low note within his voice. So he has this incredible thickness and girth of sound out of his vocals. The only other band that I heard that was the Bronx. They're a great American hardcore band. When Matt sings live, I was at a show once and I was like, what is that? And I could hear the low octave. Like I said, it's something that you can't get. You're either born with, or maybe if you've been screaming for a lot of years, your vocal cords will split and something happens. But the damage that you did to your voice sometimes makes those moments. So Hunt Sales, he's got a crazy voice. Here's it by itself, and this is him screaming into the Mojave MA37, just going full tilt.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure. You know what I am, girl. So give me more, give me more, give me more.
Now, obviously, here's some reverb in there, and he wanted some reverb. But if you get back to the essentials, let me take all the plugins off, and I'll start to tell you what I use. So first, I use the analog delay, but it's not, it's a plugin. And I have it set the way I always use it. Second was an API EQ. That one, and that's what was the coolest thing about the Mojave, because it's so dark. I mean, it's dark as night. It's darker than me. It just accepts EQ so great. So I just cranked all the upper frequencies and I cut all the lows. So it was like a hot knife through butter. It just cuts right through the mix. So here's his vocal without anything, and then I'll start to add the elements.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes.
So this is a raw tube microphone. He's screaming full tilt.
You know what I am, girl. So give me more, give me more, give me more. It's like a shot in the morning time.
Now, when you hear that, Mike, you're going to go like, wow, that is dark as night. And for someone that is not familiar with older tube mics, and I'm not saying like I know it all. There's plenty of cats out there that know way more about old mics than me. But I do remember the darkness of some mics is why people eventually went to like Sony's and some of the more faster, almost like the transients. It's almost like a Neve. A Neve is like quicksand, and an API is like faster and bolder. I mean, preamps and mics are kind of the same. Considering that I got gravel voice, Hunt singing, I'm gonna add the delay and then I'm gonna add EQ to it. So now I start to get it closer. And like I said, because I love this mic, it's really flexible. So I just happen to crank the EQ on it because his voice is asking me to put more EQ on it. But if I had like a female vocal or male vocal, someone not singing as gravelly as him, I probably wouldn't be cranking it so hard. But here's with the EQ on.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure.
Obviously, I'm blasting it, but I already know I'm going to put some other plugins that are going to start to tame it. So my plugin sequence is crazy. I'm not saying follow that, but for me, as I started to build the track, I was just reaching for stuff as I was sitting here with him. Like, what can I do? I'll put that on it. I'll put that on it. No rules. Pro Tools police are going to come and arrest me because everything I did in here was illegal. And that's just the way Hunt wanted it. So now I'm adding a Bluey.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure.
So we're getting closer to what I was hoping it would sound like. Now I'm gonna add an LA2A. Now I do if I had really hardware and I know I got some kind of vintage gear here, but in a perfect world, if I had an old LA2A, I'd have an 1176 on it. I'd probably be cutting a vocal all the time, going into both of those because one's fast, one's slow, and it really does beautiful things. So I use plugins kind of the same way, maybe out of order, but I'm out of order. So here's with both compressors in.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure. You know what I am, girl.
That mic, the MA37, is a tube mic and a condenser, and it can pick up a lot of things around it. But I use Tascam was nice enough to send me these little miniature kind of vocal gobos that sit on a stand. Every time I do a vocal, at least in my studio, I use those to focus the vocal mic. And I really love that because he was just screaming into it, and all I was getting is really his face. Hunt, I love you, but your face is crazy. But the mic sounded good on his face. Then I added a little bit of de-esser to it to just kind of tame as I'm pushing everything, and it sounds like I mean, if you looked into my Pro Tools, my 192 is just screaming like, "What are you doing to me?" And I'm like, "I'm recording."
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure.
So as I'm stacking these, I want to then at the end of it have a little bit more control. So one of my favorite plugins, I think it's a Wave, is called Vocal Writer. And I can just set it up on the range. I can lower it and put the output up. Or after I've done these stages where I get the mic the way I love it, sometimes it's too low in output because I've done all this stuff on the rest of the mix where drums are blasting, bass is blasting. How do you make the vocal, as I've processed it, come back up in a level? Because I really love the way it sounded. I use the vocal writer because it frees me to do whatever I want on the sound of the vocals. And then when I start to get the mix together, I'm really have a lot of room to raise his vocals or to lower it. So now I'm going to put the vocal writer on it. And this is kind of the, minus the reverb, his full sound.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure. You know what I am, girl.
Now, if you're looking at my screen, you're like, that is just all digital in the red. And one thing I think I should note, because people that have UAs and other DAWs, I'm working on a older Pro Tools system. It's a 192. I want to say it's probably early 2000s. It was at one time that was the rig. It was called a Pro Tools 10. I have an old Mac Tower. I've got a card that goes in the back. I have cables that run to 192 interfaces. I have a bunch of them. I love the way this system sounds. And if you can tell looking at my plugins, I am just shredding things in red, and you can probably hear distortions. But I just love the way it sounds. And I think that once again, I always say take with a grain of salt, but when you start to set this up in your own mix, if the levels don't match up and on your DAW starts to distort or get digital distortion, go ahead and lower it down and get something that matches the threshold of your own system. I do think they're all different. And obviously, at one time, this was the state-of-the-art $40,000 system in all the pro studios in LA, but you can go buy it for about $1,500 now. I happen to be that dude. So definitely when you see my mixes and you see stuff just slamming and crazy, I do think there's a little bit more forgiveness in my DAW and in my Pro Tools and in my Pro Tools 10 and in my mind. So I'm just kind of like gonna go for it. So his vocals are crazy, they're slammed. I'm like throwing it into other things that are just making it crazier and crazier and crazier because the music has already gone full tilt and I'm just trying to match the vocals. So one thing I added finally at the end of that, a Sound Toys little plate. It's my favorite plugin. Oh my God, I can use it all day on anything. So we set the plate up exactly the way Hunt liked it. And here's it with the plate.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That for sure, for sure, for sure. You know what I am, girl. So give me more, give me more, give me more.
All right. I mean, that could be something off a 3M tape machine or a MCI or a Studer. It's really messed up. So let's put his vocals now ripping with some drums and some crazy chorus bass.
Well, you got diamonds in your eyes. That's for sure, for sure, for sure. You know what I am, girl. So give me more, give me more, give me more.
Okay, so now we've established this thing now. He's done all these crazy overdubs. I didn't know what's going on or what he was going to do. We got our orchestrated section. Now he's belted a one take wonder, and it is what it is. And he didn't re sing anything in that vocal take, but he did have me drop a few words in from one section to complete the thought of what he wanted. So I think he sang the last chorus. He really loved it. And then I think certain sections we dropped in pieces onto the first chorus. So he's just getting crafty with singing at one time. We got it. And then because he is hip to modern technology, yeah, just fly it in, like that word, make that second chorus the first one, get those guitar parts. I want those on every section. That's where I want him to go. Let me hear it. So we were moving at that pace of him knowing he can throw down any way he wants to a certain point, and we would have it. So after he sang that vocal, he said he had another vocal that he considered it, once again, part of the orchestrated section. So once again, I don't know what he's talking about, except get the mic lit up. He's going to sing a section. So now here is his vocal on what I call the epic, all those weird guitars, the orchestrated section, and he sang on top of them. And up until the time when I heard those guitars by itself, when he sang on top of it, I was like, oh my God, that is the missing piece to the puzzle on those sections. I mean, that's a crazy thing. And I know people can use plugins all the time, but I really wanted something kind of classic. So I wanted kind of a Leslie kind of a sound on his vocals, like Led Zeppelin would have made a record. I do have a real Leslie, but the pace we were running, I knew I wouldn't be able to pull out my Leslie and he's going to sit around while I get the sounds up. So we went with the plug-in. But I thought it was really cool. It was called a, I think it's a Wave 2, comes with Pro Tools. It's called a Air Chorus. And we just once again messed around until he thought it was cool. And then I also stacked on that chorus a Brigade chorus by Universal Audio, which is kind of the classic, I think it was called a C1 by Boss. And if you see the screen, it looks like a funky pedal. But so I had those two choruses kind of fighting each other. Of course, we love the Little Plate by Sound Toys. I have almost the same vocal chain, the compressor, EQ, de-esser. And the last thing I contained it with was the vocal writer. So here's his vocal that he put on the last thing on the song, that as we were going, I guess he was trying to think of what he could do that would make it cooler. So when he wanted to sing again, once again, it was just the coolest. So here's the weird guitar part and his vocal line. That is some crazy shit right there. So here's the drums, the chorus bass. I'm just gonna open up the track. Everything's on now. Now, of those sections, he sang the last one once again really great of the vocal thing he added. And I combined some of the things of the last vocal take and flew them into the one and two. So it sounded really cool together. So that's why, even though he sang it one time, we got a little bit more out of it, thanks to modern technology. Of course, Pro Tools, you can do that. So here's the end of it, which he does a little bit of a variation of the first one, which is shorter. And what I loved about that little tag, it reminded me of Blind Melon. The way he has that little vocal line in the chorus, it's just super cool. I love that he, without a filter, let almost all this really cool stuff get through the mix. One thing I forgot, as I'm looking over his files, he did add one more guitar part. I want to say after the vocals were done, because he just felt something, and he goes, "Hey Manny, can you plug the guitar in?" Which was easy, straight into the DI. This was a cool thing that I thought was really nice under his vocals, and it kind of really glued it together. It's this guitar, when he starts singing, I believe this is going to be a one note kind of ditty.
Feelings are like garbage floating down that stream. You and me watching it go by. You said you were through with the junkies and the thieves. They're with me tonight.
And as you can tell, the first two notes are almost like a strange minor. You would think it wouldn't work, but it's just
Like a shot in the morning time. I'm on, wanting more. So give me more, give me more, give me more. Give me more, give me more, give me more. Feelings are like garbage floating down that street. You and me watching it go by. You said you were through with the junkies and the thieves. They with me tonight. Alright.
so, anything goes on when you're writing a song to do something to embellish it. And then once again, a lot of lessons in how he put this together and the freedom he had just to add things. And even though when I'm sure when he plays out live, I don't know if he's going to have 7 guitar players to do all this, but there is a way to consolidate this to make it sound really cool. So I love that little guitar ditty he added, minus me asking him or even sharing my tuning of my own band, the Travis Ravine, with him. Everything else was all Hunt on just his approach to the songwriting, putting it down. One thing I want to check out too is when I mentioned about his vocal cords maybe being split. I don't know if this is going to really justify the sound, but I think it was the second verse.
Alright now. Hold on, hold on. I know you and me are kinda scared.
I just hear a little bit in that. Let me turn the reverb off.
Alright now. Hold on, hold on. I know you and me are kinda scared.
I just hear a note in there, like a high note with his deep voice. So, anyways, that's just maybe I'm crazy. And I'm the perfect guy to record Hunt. I tell you that much. 2 crazy guys working together, making some crazy music. The last thing, if you follow some of my stuff that I've done on mixing, I'm just going to say that my mixes and how I set them up, they're going to be crazy. Don't even think that you're going to find some kind of rational, like, what did he do? Why did he do that? He could have done this. Why didn't he, instead of using all the plugins, I know all that stuff. But as I start to set up a mix with a guy like Hunt, I literally just let it happen. And that means just reaching for things. And as you start to stack them, I end up with this mountain of, you can say, distortion and clippings and stuff. But at the end of the day, I love it. He loved it, and it's cool. And it sounds different. There is a Manny style in there somewhere. So on the master fader, one of my favorite EQs, Avitas designed this with it's called a PSP. Everything is almost flat in it, except I hit the 28K, which adds a little bit of obviously 28K. I really love it. This is the only plugin that sounds like a hardware piece. If you really get a chance to fool around with this, it's really great. Generic wave, just kind of keeping everything from exploding out of my speakers. A Fairchild. If I had a real Fairchild and you were going to spend 20, 30, $40,000, it would be a crime because I would always watch the Fairchild barely move. So on this Fairchild, that's the way I set them up. So I'll play the track and you'll watch it. Oh, no. This one I mixed into a little bit more. So you are going to see it move around, but that's the sound that I wanted.
All right now, hold on. I know you and me are kinda scared. Them questions.
Now I'm just doing that because that's how I wanted it. I wanted to put his vocals louder than part of my cussing. I just want him loud, but I didn't want him to belittle the music. And because I worked in tape before, a lot of times running on 2 tracks, you could run a loud guitar solo or a loud vocal into your 2 track, and it just absorbs it so nice. And I was trying to imagine if my Fairchild here plugin was a tape machine, how much would I want it to engulf a loud file? And I just set it up to usually I don't have it moving that much. But as you notice when he's singing, you can see it just grabbing that vocal. That's exactly what I was hoping for. And then after the Fairchild was a Pultec. I fool around with this a little bit, and it depends on the boost and the track. And generally speaking, that's kind of only the boost I mess around with. Oxford Limiter or the Sonics. I love it. It's just incredible. The Neve, I have the Neve, this Neve, working with the Fairchild, kind of like battling each other. One's a little bit slower and more quicksand, and the other one's kind of just grabbing certain frequencies. I do mess around until they both sound right to me. So I remember when I was mixing this, it was a little bit of a battle to make sure that the Neve wasn't taking too much away from letting things go into the Fairchild. And so let me play a little bit of what the Neve looks like when I play the audio track.
All right now, hold on. I know you and me are kinda scared. Them questions.
So as you notice, it's barely moving, and that was the battle. I wanted that to barely take up some of the vocal, but I wanted the Fairchild to really just, almost like a Beatles record, just grab that vocal. So as much as I say, throw it to the wind of caring about things being distorted and loud and messed up, I do care when it gets to the master section, because I believe that's where I'm able to then kind of put the finishing touches on all this anarchy and make it come out into the real world in a mix that sounds exciting, different if you can, and more embellishing of the artist as opposed to giving him my sound. Let's see what they give me. And I always believe that I'm only as good as the bands I record. So this is a perfect example. This is Hunt Sales. I got to record them, put it all together. This to me is a great moment for me to put it together and be really stoked and proud of it. So that's kind of the mix. And the last thing was a center, which I forced up about 2 dBs of the middle section. My tape machine that I always have on it. I do mess around sometimes with the formulas. This one, I really love the GP9. For years, I think maybe 20 years, I used GP9. So I'm not saying that it sounds exactly like it, but I just feel like it's familiar to me somehow. And then on the EQ, there's a little bit of, I think it's 2K. I boosted just a hair. And then it's 2 dBs of, I think, 6K above, everything above 6K was like 2 dBs, a little bit of a boost. And I leave room for the mastering as much as you think is anarchy. I do try to consider the mastering guy, and I don't think it's incredibly loud or crazy. Alrighty, so that was my hunt sales session. A lot of lessons learned in this. I do appreciate Warren taking care of Hunt coming down into LA. He was with me for about 4 days. This filming was really done over one day. It was just great to have an incredible musician artist that his resume alone and who he even shook hands with or played with was just next level. So, anyways, thanks a lot for checking it out. You should be able to get the files and what I've done here, and just be understanding that I do have a Pro Tool system that's from another era, and the levels you may have to adjust them. So, hope you dig it. Hunt Sales in Los Angeles with Suplex Audio via Warren Hewitt and Produce Like a Pro. Thank you.